Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of our LinkedIn Live series with John Lees every Thursday at 11 a.m. Sydney time. And if you're tuning in from the United States, it'll be 6 p.m. Pacific time for you guys over there. For my friends and colleagues in Hong Kong, it's around 9 a.m. your time over there. It's every Thursday. We're up to episode 5, and today's episode is how to win from those that lose. So a great topic today that John's going to jump into for us, guys. Just again, really quickly, we are broadcasting across LinkedIn, Facebook, and my YouTube channel. If you can't hear the audio or there's any audio, please let me know. And guys, I'll bring John into the broadcast very, very quickly. If you see me distracted while John's talking, I'm not distracted. I'm over here interacting with you guys in the comments as John's doing his presentation. So please leave a comment if you're watching or you've got a question. Fire it in. John and I love lots of questions. I will give you a shout out live if you leave a comment over here. Give us a thumbs up. And as always, guys, please, if you miss it live, you can always watch the replay. I always have the links for these to the YouTube channel up there in my profile on LinkedIn. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll stay on my channel and you can watch the replay there. And in fact, go and watch the entire series. It's sitting up there. And if you're on Facebook, these always sit at the top of the Simon Van Leuven Facebook page. So they're in multiple places. This is a show for you guys. This is to help add value to everyone out there right now, particularly the way the economy is. There's lots of challenges facing all of us, whether you're looking for a job, you're in business, no matter what you are and what you're doing, this show is for you guys. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm just going to quickly acknowledge a few people here. Again, we've got Theodore who's joined, Jim Appleby. Thanks, Jim. For those of Jim's episode with us on LinkedIn Live, please jump across and check that out. It's all about how we're using recycled plastic in roads. Important to see Jim on. Thanks again, Theodore from Perth, for joining us. And Ratika, hey, mate. Hello. Good morning, you on here as well. So thank you so much. Guys, I'm not going to mess around this morning because John's waiting to join us live from California. It's 6 p.m. in the evening over there. I'm just going to run straight into the broadcast here. He's got a great show for us lined up and really super pumped to have John on again. I can't believe it's Thursday again. John, welcome to the show. Great to have you on. And what's the weather over there in California like?
Very, very warm, very hot. No complaints, but it's not exactly the kind of weather you want to go for a walk in. So it's that's the way it is. That's Northern California for you.
Absolutely. And just to acknowledge someone else who's jumped on here quickly, John, we've got James also on here from Melbourne. We've got Josh from our team on here too. So, John, today's topic, what are we talking about today?
Learning how to win from those that lose. I don't mean anything bad by that, but the point is that if you keep your eye open and study not only what works, but also what doesn't work, which is what happens in the medical world, of course, then you can go forward with more confidence. So we just have to know what doesn't work so that we don't repeat that and so that we come up with a better way of doing things and so forth. So I'll touch on the number. I won't be going too long today, and hopefully everybody finds it to be of some help and so forth.
Absolutely. Look, John, it's something that really resonates with me. Obviously, all of your topics do, of course, but something that resonates with me very strongly, because when we look at, sports team, and we were talking a little bit about this off air before about, successful, a successful sporting person being Michael Jordan, but sport in general, you talk to a lot of great sports people and they tend to say they lose them when they win, but it's what they learn from when they lose that they can apply to how to go and win. And there's a great speech that I've shared a couple of times from Formula One world champion Niki Lauda, from a couple of years ago, where he actually dedicates winning an award to the losers for this exact topic, because you learn more from losing than when you win, but it's those lessons that you go and apply to go and help yourself win. So really keen to get into it, John. I'm not going to hold you up any longer. I'm going to make myself small like always, guys. So I'm going to make myself small. I'll engage you in the comments over here. Nice to have you on, Peter, also from West Gippsland. So that's really good. Nice to have you on. John, I'm going to change the screen very, very quickly. and I'd love you to take it over. And guys, if you've got any questions, I'll be active in the comments over here. So please fire them in, and I'll try and drop them in occasionally without interrupting you too much, John. But I'm going to hand it over to you. Look forward to this session today.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for making this happen. I hope that people find the sessions to be of interest. And as I've said before, and I mean it, I'm not a teacher of anything in business. I'm a student of business, and hopefully that's what the people are that are looking in to this session are like as well. Before I get started on the business side, I just thought that I would tell the audience a little bit about myself. My name is John Lees, L-E-E-S. The name Lees is famous throughout history. You've probably heard of Hercules. There's no need to check on that. I'm just saying that because I obviously have a very similar physique to him. But seriously, if I look back in time, looking for the Lees name, the ancestors, I came up with Lars Lees, who was a Laplander, and he was part of the Vikings. And he was credited with the design of the very first Viking helmet. So I was very proud of that when I read about it. Very proud indeed. Lars Lees. Unfortunately, his design was rejected because Lars put the horns on the inside of the helmet. But we all make mistakes, I think, it can be said. And the other thing that Lars came up with, that he's known for, is the saying, loot first, then burn. Because prior to that, they'd had quite a few problems. So Lars was very helpful with that kind of thing. We also had an American ancestor called Tex Lees. And Tex Lees was a cowboy. He was, unfortunately, he died at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which, as you may know, was called Custer's Last Stand. So, as you can imagine, we're very, very proud of Tex Lees. Tex wasn't actually in the battle. He was camping nearby, and he went over to complain about the noise, and that was it, really. But it doesn't matter. I mean, the point is, we're still very, very proud of him. But all that aside, the truth is that one day I was doing a crossword, and I found out what Lees means. This is true, by the way. There was a 4-letter clue, and it said the dregs of red wine. I don't drink red wine, so I had no idea what it was. But eventually I was able to complete the clue with the name Lees. Yeah, that's what it means, Lees. The dregs of red wine, the unwanted sediment, the scum is basically what Lees means. And here in America, John means toilet. So if you're looking for a translation of my name, it's toilet scum. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of that, as you can imagine. So let's get started. So I started off, as I've told you before, I was in retail selling in shoes with my father. Then I became a rep. Everything turned upside down when you're a retailer. People come in looking for help from you, and I was happy to help them. Then I became a rep, and no one wanted to speak to me. I couldn't quite figure that out. I thought there was something wrong with me. And then eventually learning from customers, customers would tell me, because I was interested, about what kind of reps were of value to them and the kind of reps that weren't of value to them. And in a few minutes, I'll talk about the reason why, the need for talking to customers and getting this kind of experience from them, because they're, in the line of fire for sales reps all of the time. So anyway, we went to Australia, and we lived there most of our lives. We've been in America now 5.5 years. When I started in Sydney, working for Reckitt & Coleman, now called Reckitt Benckiser, after about a year or so, I became sales manager. I was only 25, but I was very keen to do the right thing. My brother, older than I am, was always helpful in the background and so forth. And I had my first meeting with the salespeople because my boss, a man called David Bruce, that I will talk about soon, he said to me, John, I've got a board meeting to go to tomorrow. Would you mind contacting the reps and asking them what their figures will be so that we can get the state of New South Wales results relative to the target, which will help me with the country's sales and what have you. And I said, sure. So I rang the salespeople up, and there was only a couple that were in outlying areas, and the rest of them came in for a meeting with me at 7:30, and I could tell they were delighted to be there at 7:30 in the morning. It's just the kind of thing that I can sense. But seriously, they sat down, and I started off, okay, Keith, what results do you see yourself achieving this month? And he said, well, I'll be lucky to do 80%. 80%? Yeah. Boy, what happened? And then he said, well, it's very, very quiet out there. Very quiet. I said, is it? He said, yeah. I've never known it to be this quiet. And then he looked out of the window. Yeah, it's very, very quiet out there. And then, like a complete idiot, I looked out of the window. And I couldn't really see anything. I couldn't see what he could see. But anyway, apparently it's very quiet out there. And then I spoke to one of the other reps. I said, Jim, how are you going to finish the month? He said, I'm not even going to do as well as Keith. I'll probably only do 75%. I said, what happened? He said, well, as Keith said, it's very, very quiet out there. Everyone knows that. Plus, it's tax time. I said, what does that mean? He said, it's tax time. People don't, go out of their way to make sales at that time. You can't, because nobody wants to buy. Oh, okay. Susan, what about you? She said, yeah, well, I heard what Keith said. It is very, very quiet out there. I've never known it to be this quiet. And and as Jim said, it's tax time, so it makes things very, very hard. Plus, I was just talking to another supplier, and they've just had the worst quarter they've ever had. Anyway, I get all the information, results, reasons, the whole thing, and I go up to see my boss, David Bruce. And David said, John, I'm sorry to put you through this at the last minute. How will the New South Wales finish the month? I said, well, David, I've had a look at the situation, and I've talked to all the reps. We had a meeting this morning at 7:30. That was 7:30. And it looks like we're going to finish with about just over 80%. He said, 80%? I said, yeah. He said, 80%, John, that's ridiculous. I said, well, 80%-ish. No, John, no. See, you now let me explain, because I should have explained this to you before, John. You and I are paid for achieving 100%, okay? Are you willing to take a pay cut this month? No, I didn't think you would be. Same with targets, okay? We must achieve our targets. So at any time you find out that you're not going to achieve your target, then come and talk to me. It doesn't matter when it is, the dead of night, the weekend. I'll do everything I can to help you. But please never again come to my office and talk about 82%. I said, okay, I'm sorry. And he said, and by the way, he said, what sort of things were the reps saying? I said, well, they said it's very quiet out there at the moment. It's also tax time, and one of the other suppliers has had the worst quarter they've ever had. He said, John, we don't need to hear that kind of thing. That's called an excuse by reps, okay? He said, you have to get used to that, and you can't allow it, okay? Okay. So David Bruce was an excellent manager, a very good man. He had very high standards, and he stood by those standards. He was a very nice guy. Never heard him swear, in any way, bad language. Very good operator, good speaker, good trainer. He was, a very good example to someone at my age at that time. I think David was in his 50s at the time, and as I said, I was 25. So it was wonderful to work with him, absolutely wonderful. And and then he had to move on to another kind of role within the company. And then I inherited the worst boss I've ever had in my entire life. He was absolutely useless. I'm not going to give you his name for obvious reasons, but he was absolutely useless. And I am proud to say, and I mean this, that I learned just as much from him as I did from David Bruce. So we can learn from both sides of the coin. We can look at those that do things very well. And I bought books, over the years from people like Peter Drucker, people who were very good at what they did, cut to the point, no messing around, gave excellent examples, versus people who would write books full of nonsense, absolute nonsense. So, yeah, you can learn from those that don't do things well, and you can learn from things that do things well. Very important. So, that was point number one. Okay, next point. In Australia, I became a speaker at some point and a trainer. And one day a guy rang me up and he said, John, he said, I've heard that you do speaking and training on sales. Is that correct? I said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, we're having a conference day soon. And we thought you might come along and give our salespeople a talk. I said, oh, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. I'd love to. And he said, okay. And I said, now, can you tell me, do you have a theme for the day at all? And he said, yes, just hang on a second. And he grabbed a piece of paper and he read it out. Go for the jugular. What a lovely sentence to have for a manager. Go for the jugular. And I said, by the way, what date is the seminar? He told me, and I said, oh, unfortunately, I'm not available at that time. But if you need other speakers, let me know. And I mean, here's the lesson from this. If you're going to have a meeting and you're going to give it a title, then make the title helpful and valuable to the marketplace. Don't simply talk about little, sayings and different things. Talk about the need to satisfy the market, the need to, be valuable in the marketplace above and beyond other suppliers. As I've mentioned before, don't just be a distributor, be a contributor. Be a good distributor. You must be a good distributor. You must be reliable and so forth and so on. But to be a contributor means that you're an ideas-driven company based on ideas on helping customers to be successful with your service or your product that you sell and so forth. Now, I eventually spoke at about 2,000 conferences in Australia, not just in Australia, but overseas as well, which I thoroughly enjoyed, really enjoyed it. I didn't want to be known as a motivational speaker or any of that nonsense. I just wanted, because I became a rep, I became in sales, I didn't want to, start talking nonsense to people about hugging themselves and all that kind of thing in the front row and whatever else that motivational speakers do. What I wanted them to do is listen to good ideas that I had found to be extremely helpful and so forth. And 2,000 conferences. At every single conference I went to, the starting point was their results. Their results for the past year, their results for the past 6 months, whatever was relevant at that time. And they would talk about the fact that they'd missed their target, they'd got over their target, whatever the case may be, that's what they started with, and that was it. And then they'd get into the conference, and someone like myself would get up and speak and so forth. Only at one conference, only one out of 2,000 were things done differently. The start of the conference, the first thing they talked about was results created for the customers. Okay, because that's where we get our sales from. That's where we get our earnings, our income, our reputation from. Okay, so why didn't the other 2,000 companies do it? Were they idiots? Not at all. No, it's just that we've been raised to understand that the most important thing that we can ever think about and talk about is our results, our market share, our this, our that, and so forth and so on. Be proud of whatever you've achieved. But remember that all of your achievements come from the marketplace. So this company showed first the level of success that they had created in the market. They even had customers there that they interviewed and got information from and so forth. So, I urge you to think about when you're at a conference, when you're at a meeting, a low-key meeting, in a local area or whatever it happens to be, start off with, your situation with the customers, and then you can more easily relate to what happened with your company's results. Because if your company's results are down, it's usually because the results that you created were down. So the most successful people I've met in management, senior management, sales management, and so forth, and salespeople, the first and most important thing for them is understanding the market and what did we do for the market and so forth. That's what the medical world do, by the way. Medical world have all manner of financial commitments to be concerned about, costs and earnings and so forth behind the scenes, just commercial requirements. But the first thing they ever talk about is the rate of success they've had with patients and so forth. So here's a question for you. And this is a question that you can ask of your staff if you wish. Let's imagine that you moved from where you live, you had to go and stay somewhere for maybe a year or two, and you're there, you've made lots of friends, you're enjoying yourself, things are going well, and then one day you're not feeling too good. So you talk to a colleague and you ask, would they recommend a doctor? And they said, oh yeah, you can go to my doctor. So they give you the details, you make a call, and you go and see the doctor. At the point of contact with the doctor, the person that you've never met before, what does she or he know about you at that moment in time? Well, when you ask people that question, I can tell you what the answer will be, usually nothing. How could they know anything about you? They've only just met you. Yeah, but that's not true, you see. What's true is that they know a lot about you. For instance, do they know what your blood pressure should be? Yes. Do they know what your pulse should be? Yes, etc. Except there's a whole range of things, very important aspects of life that they understand, that they've been taught, etc. They know all about you before they've even met you. And then when they meet you, then they get to know you as an individual. We must do the same thing with the market. We must understand the market. We must understand the higher level of the market. As I've said before, here's the, let's say this is the market. Okay. And here is the success of the market. Okay, and as I've mentioned before, only a few organizations of the small, the medium, and the large variety, they have, more success than anyone. They have mistakes. They have all sorts of problems. They suffer the same problems that everybody else does. When it comes to the economy, when it comes to weather, anything you can name, they have the same problems, but they control the situation for themselves. So they get very good results. Occasionally things go backwards, but then they make sure it goes forwards again. And then you go to the base of the pyramid of the market. And, oops, I missed out the K there. And here you find that very large number of companies, again, small, medium, and large, generate next to nothing, which is amazing when you think about it, because as far as I know, these people as human beings are designed to be as successful as these people here. I hope you agree with that. If not for yourself, then if you have children, surely we would expect our children to operate at very high levels and so forth. Now, not posturing, but really very valuable people. And then we have the people in the middle, and the people in the middle generate only average results because they have decided to be average. And I'll make a couple of comments during this session that points out to people who are average, but who pretend to be up here. Okay? They're not conscious of pretending, but they do pretend. Okay? These people don't pretend. They get on with it. They do it. They hold themselves accountable. So we've got to learn from the market. We've got to involve these people in our conferences, in our meetings. We've got to call meetings and meet with them, only a handful here and there, and talk to them about, and they're not going to tell us how to run our business, by the way. That's impossible. But what they can tell us is what it's like to do business with different kinds of suppliers. Okay? Very, very important. What kind of reps they've met. What have been the best reps? Well, how many of them are the worst reps? What's the normal kind of rep that they get to see? And so forth and so on. Very important for us to have this feedback so that then we can navigate a path through the marketplace and have a better understanding. This is what they do in war zones. They're not just going to say goodbye to the soldiers and best of luck and go back into a tent. They're going to know ahead of time, this is the situation we face. Okay? And that's what we should know. And that's why I've mentioned at 2 or 3 of the sessions, when I became marketing and sales director of Schwarzkopf, we created a board of customers. These were salon owners. Our main market was salons. Very, very nice people, very hardworking people, artistically inclined people. And we met with them every quarter. In Australia, we had a group, and in New Zealand, we had a group. And it meant that, in effect, they really were extremely helpful to us. They didn't even know they were being helpful, but we made a point of not only asking them for feedback about our company, our products, our service, etc., but also our salespeople. Not looking for nasty comments or anything like that. Everything that we heard, we would use to improve things in the future. We didn't take information that was negative and then go and start telling the salespeople off, because you can't rewind the clock. So Very important that you have people that are part of your team. And I often say to people, how important is teamwork? Oh, very important. Is the customer a part of your team? Well, I would like to think so. Well, they're not. In most cases, they're not. Okay, so you don't have a team until customers are part of it. It's about as simple as that. So that's what I have been recommending to organizations for years, to do what we did, which is to have a board of customers, meet regularly. You don't have to call them that. So here's 2 examples of what happened. There was a company that was a brewery in Australia, quite a well-known brewery. And they had asked me to do work with their sales force, which I was happy to do. Very nice people. I knew the managing director quite well. And I kept on reminding them, get some customers, sit down with customers, find out what they think and so forth and so on. And because you'll be amazed at what you'll find out. Absolutely amazed. Amazed at what they didn't tell you, when in fact you would want to know, why didn't they tell us that? Because they don't want to have arguments with people. They've got enough things on their plate without having to tell you what your problems are. So anyway, they eventually agreed to meet with customers. So this is a brewery, okay? They were also associated with another company that made various types of drinks and so forth, and but not beer. So they managed to get 7 retailers together. One guy was looking after 120 stores, retailers. Another one had 1 very good retail store. Another one had 4. Another one had 7. That kind of situation, representative of the market. Very nice people. So the managing director greeted everyone, thanked them very much for being there, told them that they'd all be out to lunch after the session. And he said that he wanted them to hold back nothing. Just don't hold back any punches. Let us know exactly what you think about our company, what we do well, what we could do better, etc. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to John Lees, who's going to do a 30 to 45-minute presentation on business, etc., which I did. And then I used what I had presented as the basis for discussion. So I then said, okay, well, first of all, tell us what's good about this company. Tell us what their strengths are. So they did. They were very nice. And everybody was looking at themselves. The sales director was very happy. He was looking over at the managing director. And, they were very happy, as indeed they should be. And they gave all sorts of compliments about this, about that, and so forth and so on. Can't remember them all. And then I said, okay, so what do they need to do better? I didn't say what do they do wrong, what's they do bad. What could they do better? And one of the customers said, well, they have to do more to help their reps, because the reps are not helpful at all. They're not valuable at all. As a matter of fact, when anyone ever tells me that their rep is here to see me, I always tell them I'm not in. Tell them I'm not here today. Why? Why did you say that? Because they're of no value to me at all. They take up time. All they want to do is count stock. I've got people, young people, that I pay to do that kind of thing. I expect that a rep will come to see me and talk business, new business, better business. That's what I'm interested in. That's only my point of view. I don't know about everybody else here because I've not met these people before. So then the next person spoke, and then the next person spoke, and they all, in their own way, in their own language, said exactly the same thing. The reps were hopeless. Okay? Now, as we have discussed before, if you've got hopeless reps, that's the fault of management. Okay? You hired the wrong people. Remember, you cannot do the right thing with the wrong people. Okay? So management's hired the wrong people, or they've not trained them, they haven't set standards for them, they don't supervise them, and so forth and so on. Staff dance to the tune of management. There's no question about that. So the sales director now looked very sad. He looked over at the managing director and he didn't really know what to say. And the managing director was in the same boat, well, this is terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. No, well, you asked him. It's not a big deal from our point of view. I mean, it's your problem, not ours. So, it's up to you. Anyway, the rest of the meeting went and very helpful. And then we finished. And we had lunch with the retailers, and that was it. And then, following that, the managing director and sales director agreed that in the future they would solve the problem by not having any more meetings with customers. So there you go. And there's a strategy for you. Now, they didn't say that. They didn't use that language. The point is they never found the time or the inclination to have any more meetings with customers. And by the way, the managing director and the sales director were both fired not too long after, because they had no control over the market that they served, no control over their own reps and so forth. You can't blame the reps, you have to blame management. Then there's another company that's quite well known in Australia, and they do printing on a smaller basis. They're not big printing companies, they're smaller street corner type printing. Usually very nice people, and they were having a conference, and they asked me to speak at the conference, which I did. And afterwards we were having dinner, and I recommended to them that they meet with customers, just like I'm saying now. And they all looked a little confused, really. And one of the guys said, well, we can't really do that, John. And I said, why not? He said, well, because then there's a very good chance that they would find out that we're charging everyone different price rates. So, you know, we just couldn't do that. I thought, my God, that's unbelievable. Okay, so they don't want to know because maybe they'll find out what's going on and so forth. So there you go. Use customers in your business, okay? They're not going to tell you how to run your business. They can't, they won't. But what they can do is add to your information and knowledge. Now, I said earlier, if you met a doctor for the first time, would she or he know anything about you? The answer is yes, because they've studied human beings. They've studied the market at large, and that's what good businesses have to do. Okay? Very, very important. And then you can structure everything according to what you've learned. Not simply because the market told you what to do, but because you've thought about it and you've decided to do things better. Okay, next point.
Just quickly, John, I'll jump in before you go on to the next point. I'll just really quickly acknowledge we've got Jeremy, who's watching us on the YouTube channel from Western Australia, so thanks for that. We've got Kelvin Ag in Melbourne, who's joined us as well. I think I've mentioned James already. So, guys, again, if you've got any questions, fire them in, and I'll throw them at John as we go, but I'm trying not to interrupt him too much today. Over to you, John, as you can continue on the next point.
Yeah. By the way, my twin brother's watching this over in Britain, and
oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not just a twin; he's an identical twin. So there you go. And if he was stood here now by the side of me, you wouldn't be able to tell any difference between the two of us whatsoever. And the only negative thing is we don't really get on as well as I would like us to. But on the positive side, there is a positive side to things. He's extremely good looking. Very, very good looking. I can't tell you how good looking he is. It's just amazing. But anyway, let's carry on.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What are you saying, Simon? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've got the same problem. I've got a twin brother as well. People see me everywhere also.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay. So anyway,
yeah, I know.
Have a look here now. So here's the market. There's the market, and now we're going to break it down into people, because the market is made up of people.
Hey, John, are you able just to slightly stand to the left as you're writing on your board?
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay. So here we have someone who's a little bit on the negative side. So then we have someone who is negative or positive. You know, sometimes they're more positive, sometimes they're less positive, more negative and so forth. And then we have people who are, without question, very positive, very, very positive people. And when I say positive, I don't mean they're acting. I mean, they are genuinely positive people. And as we said in the last session, I believe it was, the idea is not try to be positive, but to be accountable, because if you're accountable, you don't have any choice except to be positive. You look for the positives and so forth and so on. But there are people out there, don't tell me you haven't met them, who are negative people. I don't think sales will be very good this week. Why don't you try to be more positive? All right, I'm positive sales won't be very good this week. Then you have other people. Oh, I want to get paid what I'm worth. No, we're not allowed to pay that little. So you're bound to get people who are negative, people who are sort of in between and so forth. So here's the point. Only ever, and get your reps to understand this, only ever sell to these people here. You never sell to negative people. Never sell to people who are somewhere in between, a little bit negative, a little bit positive. Always sell to people who are positive, okay? Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Now, let's get on to the next point. No, but wait a minute. No, we can't. Because I imagine you're saying, well, hang on a minute. You mean, are these most of the people? Yes, these are most of the people. This would be here, we're talking at least 90% of the people are in these two areas here, okay? So it's absolutely essential that your reps only talk to these people here. Otherwise, they're not going to get anywhere at all. And not only are they not going to get anywhere, if dealing with these people here, they're going to be very miserable, very distracted, demotivated, you name it. So people say, well, that's going to cut down on the number of people I'll be talking to then, because a lot of the people I talk to are this way inclined. Exactly. And here's the point. Okay, we caused this to happen. Okay, if you talk to customers, as I made the point just a little while ago, they will tell you what it's like to see new reps coming to see them, or even regular reps who come to see them, who drive them nuts, who don't give them any sort of ideas whatsoever. They're product driven. Okay, their own product driven, not your product, not your service, theirs. They don't know how to get involved and help you. Now, everybody in every market who does buying knows that I don't really want to see reps if I can help it because they drive me nuts. On the other hand, maybe there's a better mousetrap out there. So I've got to allow myself to at least talk to these people. Now, I mentioned to you in one of the sessions that what I used to do is I bought a watch and the watch had an alarm on it. And I set the alarm for 5 minutes into the meeting with the rep. The rep didn't know this, of course. So when the rep turned up, so the rep would ring or whatever, can I come and see you? And I would say, yes, of course you can. Delighted to meet you. When? We'd set a date, a time, and then the rep would come to see me, she or he, and I would always be very nice to them. I don't like being the opposite with anybody. And I would say, well, first of all, thank you for coming. Come into the office, take a seat, please. Oh, thank you. And that would be different for them, believe me, because I was behaving in this way. So, yes, so go ahead and tell me what you want to talk about. And then their story, their management-driven story would begin. And it was useless, absolutely useless, empty, if you like. So there's an old saying, no written word or mortal plea can teach your staff what they should be, nor all the books upon the shelves, but what the leaders are themselves. So we have to give people something interesting to talk about. Okay, so I would sit there listening, go ahead, yes, smiling, waiting, and then they would start. And the start would always be the same. Well, first of all, thank you for seeing me. I'm not sure if you've heard of our company. And then they start talking about the company. Then they start talking about their range of products. And, and then the alarm would go off. And the alarm would save me. And they would look somewhat distracted. I'm sorry, what was that? I said, I'm sorry. This has reminded me that I've got a meeting to go to in only a few minutes. I do apologize. But look, we've got another 5 minutes at least to talk. If you could maybe get to the main point, that would be very helpful. Yes, go ahead, please. But they couldn't. In at least 90, 95% of cases, they couldn't get to the point. Okay? And so therefore I would say, thank you, leave me your brochure, leave me your card, which by the way is what most customers do when they are not happy with the rep, because they don't want to have an argument. They don't want to explain to them what they're doing wrong. They'll just simply say something like, well, look, anyway, thank you. Have you got a card, a business card? Oh, yes. Okay, well, can I have your business card? Oh, certainly. Thank you. And do you have a brochure from your company? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then let me have your brochure. Thank you so much. Oh, that's fine. No problem. And I'll talk about it with my colleagues here, and we'll get in touch with you at some point. So I'll call you. You don't have to call me. Oh, that's great. Thank you. The rep then goes back to the office, and the manager says, how did you go with that prospect? Oh, really good. So they're going to buy? No, not yet, no. But he did ask for my brochure and my card, so it's looking good. No, it's not. No, it's not. So don't talk to these people. Don't talk to these people. Talk to these people here. And these people want to hear about improvement. They want to hear about progress. They don't want to hear about change. They've already got suppliers. Their suppliers have been helping them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. They don't want to suddenly dump a supplier because a new rep comes in with exactly the same offering as their supplier. So what we have to do is make absolutely sure that our story begins with something along the lines of, well, I'll give you an example. We had a meeting with our reps at Schwarzkopf one time at a conference. And I said to them, if you go to market, and I use this very simple diagram. I said, you must only talk to these people here, and the only thing you can talk about there is opportunity with them. Okay? That's what we sell. We sell opportunities. We sell ideas, etc. Products cost money. Ideas make money. We're an ideas-driven company. So one guy put his hand up, and he said, John, you're based in Sydney. I've got a customer in DY, which is where, by the way, my wife and I first lived when we arrived in Australia. A beach suburb, and he said, I have a salon there. It's totally L'Oreal. They're absolutely, completely linked with L'Oreal. In fact, I think the owner of the salon, I think his girlfriend is from L'Oreal. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, how about you do a test for us with this one? Because I'd love to see what happens here. Because I've been calling on them and they don't want to talk to me. So can you take this as an example? And I said, yeah, I'd be delighted to. So, okay, so we organized. I gave the guy a ring. And I said, hello, my name's John Lees. I run the marketing and sales operations for Schwarzkopf. I understand you have a very good, solid relationship, ongoing relationship with L'Oreal. Nothing that I have to say will change anything that you do with L'Oreal. Nothing at all. I'm only here to talk to you about opportunities. So that's what I want to say. So first thing I did was make absolutely sure that I didn't do what most people do, which is start talking about who we are and what we do. I started talking about the fact that I knew he had a good relationship. I did that irrespective of whether I knew they did or didn't. I just assumed that they did. Otherwise, why would they do business with them? And so we agreed on an arrangement to see him. I went around to see him. And I said, first of all, thank you for seeing me. I do appreciate it. And I used a joke. I mean, it's a very simple joke. I mean, it's not a joke. It's just a bit of fun. I said, thank you very much for seeing me. Honestly, what I have to say will take no more than 5 to 6 hours. I promise you. Okay. And then they would smile because that's ridiculous. And then I would say, in all seriousness, I won't be here for long. As I said on the phone, nothing I have to say will interfere with your current arrangements with L'Oreal. I understand they're a very good company, a very good supplier. Is that fair comment? Absolutely. I said, okay, well, fine. I said, now, before I give you information that I think you'll find useful, do you mind if I have a quicker look around the salon? No, not at all. So he just took me, for 1 or 2 minutes around the salon. Now, that was for a particular reason. We had a customer in Queensland called Stefan, who had 70 salons at that time. So he was really, the number one. He was the Michael Jordan, if you like, in the salon industry. And I, had made good friends with him. He was very helpful. And he told me one day that any salon you go into, the chair and the mirror together are worth about $400 a week if they're a low-level achiever, $800 a week if they're doing okay, average, and $1,200 a week if they're doing very well. He said, so the aim for us is to have a $1,200 a week salon for every chair that we have and so forth. And I never forgot that. So when I'd been around the salon, what I had been doing is counting the number of chairs they had. and they had a total of, I think it was 10 chairs and mirrors. And we sat down. I said, by the way, before I get started, it must be a wonderful feeling for you to know that you're sitting on a gold mine here. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, this salon is worth at least $12,000 a week. He said, where do you get that from? We don't do anything like $12,000 a week. I said, no, I didn't say you did. I say, your potential here in this salon is $12,000 a week. There's no question about that. And you've got something to aim for. And that's really what I'm here to talk about. It's an opportunity for you. And then I started talking to him about the area of coloring. And I said to him, okay, here's naught, here's 100%. I know you're not at naught. I know you can't be at 100% yet. So where do you think your salon would be at this moment in time in terms of achievement of color services with your clients? And he said, well, I would say, we're doing pretty well. I'd say 40, maybe 50%. And I said, that's great. So I then drew a line and rubbed out the 50%. I said, okay, now you're buying from L'Oreal, your colors? Yeah. I said, okay, so we have some colors that offer you an opportunity to extend that 50% upwards towards about 60 to 75%. And that's how it all went. And he was more than happy to do it, Knew he wasn't defending L'Oreal. Obviously, he wouldn't. If they'd have found out, as I'm sure they would have gone, what the hell's going on? But the point is, we sold him an opportunity. We recognized his current situation. Okay? So just remember, these are the people that we're speaking to here. Only ever speak to people who are positive. Now, everyone's positive, providing the language you use, the opportunities you talk about, the potential you talk about, is something that they need. Not necessarily want. They didn't ask for it. They need. And they're not used to it. They're not used to people coming in and selling productivity. They're selling people sell products. Okay? And everybody's got enough products of their own. Okay, now let me have a quick drink. Here's another example. Many years ago, I was asked to do some training for a very, very large company. I won't name the company, but a very big company. And I met the sales manager, very nice guy. And he said to me, John, before we get started, before we talk about training, I want to show you a card that has our values on it. It has 8 values altogether. And it's very important for you to know about those values. I said, okay, that's great. Thank you. So he then went into his drawer. He started rummaging. And he said, well, I'm out of cards. I only got 1 card left. He said, but let me just make a note to order some more cards. He said, but anyway, you can have this card here. And there is the card. Okay, there's the card. And it's got the 8 values on it. And by the way, things like integrity and respect, helping each other, relentless improvement, performance orientation, clear accountabilities, power of ideas, all that kind of thing. I had no argument with any of those points. They were all very good points as far as I was concerned. So I said, well, thank you for the card. And I put it in my pocket. And then we began the talk about training for the salespeople. And after about 15 minutes of conversation, I said to him, by the way, as of now, as of this time, which 2 of those 8 values would matter most to you in terms of ongoing business? Oh, he said, no, they're all important, John. That's why there's 8. And I said, I realize that. I said, but I'm sure there must be, at any point in time, 2 of those things, or 1, whatever the case may be, that really stands out as being an area that you have to attend to right away. And I'm asking so that I can design the training accordingly. So he said, yeah. He said, well, no one's asked me that question before. He said, that's a very good question. Can I have the card back, please? What's the point? He had no idea what was on the card. Okay, it's a form of management pretense. It is not intended, by the way. This is simply posturing. Okay, he's talking about a card and he doesn't even know what's on it. He has no idea what's on it. Don't get involved in that kind of thing. Okay, make what you do real. Make it valuable. So I never forgot that. And here's the next point. This is a little bit off to one side, but I was telling Simon about a little earlier about how we can learn, from people, not just in business, You will all remember Bjorn Borg, the Swedish tennis player who was, I think he won something like 11 or 12 Grand Slams. Great player. But not only was he a great player, his conduct on the court was absolutely incredible. He never argued about a line call, never argued with the judge, never questioned anything, never lost his temper. Very, very controlled, very, very unusual at that level of sport. And I was always amazed by it, like most other people. How the hell does he do it? And then one day I was reading about Bjorn Borg, and at age 17, when competing for the junior championships, he was banned from playing tennis in Sweden because of his behavior, his ongoing terrible behavior of swearing on court, cursing, arguing with lines people, arguing with the other player, arguing with the guy, the judge, whatever you call him. I can't remember what you call him there. And pardon? What was that?
The umpire.
Yeah, I was just testing.
I think the umpire.
Just testing you, Simon.
Yeah, if I was paying attention.
Oh, for God's sake! I knew exactly. I knew it was umpire. What am I, an idiot? Don't say anything about that. So anyway, he was arguing with everybody and cursing and God knows what else. So they banned him for 6 months, and he was absolutely devastated. And then to compound the problem, his parents took his rackets away, so he couldn't even practice. Okay, now he was in love with tennis. He begged to be allowed back into play again for the junior championships, but they wouldn't let him. And so come 6 months, he's back on court again, and here we now see an entirely different Bjorn Borg. And that's how he continued from that point on. So sometimes something really bad has to happen for us to realize that, we've got to improve the way we do things, not just change the way we do things, but improve the way we do things. And that's what he did. And it's an excellent example, from my point of view, of a high-level tennis player. Okay, here's another example. Very large company in Melbourne asked me to do some training for them. I was delighted to do so. And the general manager said, John, everyone's gone home. It's just you and me. I want to go through our presentation on the computer for you. And I'll go through all the slides that the reps use. And all I'd like you to do is just let me know, stop me at any time and ask me questions, make suggestions, whatever you like. I said, sure, go ahead. Because I had no idea what was coming up. And then he started. 82 slides. Just imagine, 82 slides. And when we got to the end, he said, John, so what do you think? I said, I have a question for you. He said, yeah. I said, how dangerous is dynamite? Is that a trick question? I said, not at all, no. Oh, he said, well, it's very dangerous. I said, okay, absolutely right. I said, what if there's no detonating device? Oh, well, then it's not dangerous. I said, okay. I think what you have is dangerously positive for the market, but you need a detonating device. You can't use 82 slides to get your point across. Okay, you have to be able to get to the point as quickly as you can. And when you get to the point, then all the other slides should bear that first point on the top left-hand corner, the top right-hand corner, whatever, so you can keep referring back to it. But don't use 82 slides. And he understood what he'd done wrong. He understood, and so forth. So just remember, you need a detonating device, something that will detonate interest almost immediately. And it's not false, nothing false, it's real. It's real. So generally speaking, another problem that you will find in businesses is that they will ask their reps, their salespeople, their service people to do the best they can, but they do not give them standards and they don't measure them against those standards. So let me give you an example. So here in America, I have been working with the National Shoe Retailers Association, and very nice people. And like most other retailers, their members have gone through hell and back in recent times due to COVID-19. So shops were shutting left, right, and center, decimated, major costs, problems everywhere you couldn't see. firing staff, all sorts of terrible problems that I didn't have to go through. What I did have to go through, which was only small compared to what they went through, is that my work was temporarily stopped because there were no stores for me to work with, because I had been doing Skype sessions for retailers, which I do in Australia too, by the way. Not just retailers, but any kind of a business that wants some professional help. And so eventually we got to the point whereby we would start talking again, and they would start opening their stores and what have you. So I then challenged them to operate by standards. Some did, most didn't. Some did to some extent, and so forth. So here's for instance, what I suggest to a shoe store. I suggest standards that amount to 6 steps. Okay, so one, two, three, four, five, 6. So first step, you greet the consumer. And as I explained to them, the customer doesn't mind you being busy because that's a sign of success. What they don't like is being invisible. So when you greet people, make sure you do so as promptly as you can, and in a nice way and in a genuine way. Okay? Now sit them down and listen to what they have to say. Never ignore what a customer says they want. Listen and then lead. So what's listening all about? Well, so how can I help you today? Why did you come to our store today? Well, I'm looking for, and then they will say something quite specific. I'm looking for shoes, and they will nominate the shoes, or I'm looking to get your help on shoes that will help me to do this or that. And fine, okay, that's great. So you listen and you say, no problem, I've got those shoes and I'll bring those shoes out. And then they go into the leadership mode. Nothing outstanding or anything like that. So for instance, these 3 things they have to do here. Number 1, I'm going to take a few seconds to measure your feet. Okay? They do not ask permission to do the things they have to do. Same for sales reps or anyone else. Don't ask permission, and don't be pushy either. So, what do they do in a lot of stores? Would you like me to measure your feet? Disaster, because the customer knows what size they take. So no, it's okay, thank you. And then they go out and bring shoes out and they don't fit the customer, because here's the news. We have a lot of shoes here and they all come in the same sizes, but some of them fit differently. So I want to take a few seconds to measure your feet to make sure the shoes I bring out are going to fit with you and I don't waste your time. Perfect sense to a customer, no problem at all. Secondly, do you have any foot pain problems? And let me give you an example of what I mean. We have 70 to 80% of people that come in our store that have foot pain related problems with their heel, perhaps their ankle, their toes. And I wanted to check with you for a particular reason if you have problems of that kind on a daily basis. And then they will say yes or no. And then and you can say to them, well, the reason I'm asking this question is so that if you do have problems, there are other shoes I can bring out that are orthotics that will help you to get your stance better and reduce and relieve that pain, in some cases remove that pain altogether. That's part of the leadership role. Only takes a few seconds. Third part of leadership. By the way, we have some other shoes similar to the ones that you asked for, and I'll bring some of those out just so that you know what's available. And then my question to stores and to staff is, are they entitled to this information? Oh, yes. Okay, then let's do it. Let's make it part of our standards. So then we go to the third stage, which is called fitting. Helping the person with the various shoes that you brought out, asking questions, answering questions, seeing what works, what doesn't work, etc. Next, advice as to what to buy. Now, we mentioned this in the first session. You, as the salesperson, cannot close the sale. Okay, what they can do, and they can't ask for the order either. That's just weak. What we have to do is give a recommendation as to what we think would work best. That's exactly what doctors do. They know full well we don't have to take their advice, but we do. Okay, so here the advice will be along the lines of, Okay, well, I'm looking forward to hearing what your decision will be on what you want to buy. And I thought it would be helpful for you if I give you my recommendations, just so that you know what I think will work best for you. No argument. It's better than saying to a customer, so what do you think? And then leaving them stranded. Next, we talk about accessories. Every shoe store has accessories that complement the shoes being purchased. Okay? Less than 10% of stores would talk about their accessories. What's the point of having them? Why have you got them on the shelf? Why don't you do something about it? Talking is silver, showing is gold. So when the person's made a decision as to what they want to buy, with your help, then just say to them, would you mind sitting there a second? I'm going to bring something out that I think you'll find helpful. And then they go and they get a little tray and they put the accessories in it and they bring it over to the customer and they explain what the accessories will do to complement the shoes that have been purchased. And then they will say, you can get these today, you can get them any other time you like. I just wanted you to know what's available. Okay? 70% of cases people buy right away, and in many other cases people come back. And then we have the goodbye, which is not only the transaction being concluded, the payment, but also to let the person know about an idea that I created in Australia many years ago called Introduce a Friend. So all they have is a card. They can have several cards. They give it to the customer. Hope you enjoyed your time with us today. By the way, none of this takes more time than is necessary. Very important for the benefit of the associate, the salesperson, and for the customer. If you feel that your time with us was well spent today, then would you mind giving this card? I'll give you a number of cards here. You're giving them to friends. And if they come to the store to buy, they will get $10 off their next purchase. And we will make a note of that and contact you. And then you will get $10 off your next purchase, etc. Very simple, nice way to finish the thing. So this is what I mean by standards. Okay. Now you can't simply just make a drawing of them and explain them. You have to help staff to go through this. First of all, they have to buy it. Are your customers entitled to these things? Yes. Okay, fine. If they were listening to what we had to say right now, would they approve or disapprove? Oh, well, yeah, they'd approve. Okay, well then let's learn how to do it properly. It's very important to learn how to do it properly. Okay, training. So that's what my training is all about, is helping them to do this, etc. Okay, what else did I want to go through? Yeah, there are a couple of other things, but if you like, Simon, I can go through them next time round if we've run out of time.
Yeah, we can. If you want to make them part of next week's session, yeah, John.
Sure. I'll do that. But absolutely. There's just one thing I wanted to finish with.
Yeah, go.
Okay. So I've written a number of books. I've mentioned before, and I hope that some of you will respond to this. These books are free of charge to you in PDF form. Okay? So you can contact Simon or you can contact myself. I'll give you my email address as I have done before. info@johnlees.com.au. Info.
And John, I've just dropped that in a comment at this exact time.
Good.
So as John mentioned, guys, John is giving everyone the opportunity to get a copy of one of his books, the author of 13 books on business development, sales, customer service, everything you're seeing in these live shows. You know, John's written 13 books on these topics. So I'm really grateful, John, that you are doing this for our audience. I know that you used to sell these books. So, you know, on behalf of the audience, thank you so much for making them all available. But if you want them, guys, you do need to flick John a quick email, request them. And as John mentioned, it's info@johnlees.com.au. John, is there one particular book that is very, very relevant to today's topic?
Yeah. Well, I'm just about to make the point about that. And what I wanted to say, first of all, is that, as Simon said, I've written 13 books, and I'm not boastful, as I'm sure you already realize, but that is 12 more than God. So, anyway, so the idea with the books is that, watching these sessions, you're entitled to additional information. And I don't sell the books here in America anymore. I've got all the books and so forth, but I've also got them in all of the books in PDF form. So here's the suggestion I wanted to do. There's a very simple idea called the book title test. So here I have a book, the first book that I mentioned to you, The Move from Order Taker to Sales Maker. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, and this is the promise to the potential reader. On the back page, we have, details about me, very little, and then ideas on what the book is all about in more detail, etc. But this is the key. This is the key. You never go to a bookstore and find that they display the backs of books. They always display the front of books. So my challenge to you is to come up with a book title. If you were going to promote your business and write a book about it, what would the title be? Okay, now I've done this with many companies, and there is a propensity for people to talk about what we do, but nobody's interested in what you do. Everybody's interested in what you get done for them. Okay, so there's one example. Okay, there's the back. Okay, what would your book title be? How would it best describe, in only a few words? See, this book here, I think it was my second book, Successful Sales Management. That's all it is. On the back, quite a bit of copy, etc. But there's the title. Okay, so that either appeals to people or it doesn't, especially to sales managers and so forth. That book's available, of course, as well. Another session that we had, I mentioned this book, Sell Pleasure First, Price Last. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. So I would suggest you don't use any more than 8 to 10 words. If you can use a lot less, that's up to you. Now, the moment you come up with a very good book title as a test, I'm not suggesting you start writing books, although you may feel inclined to do so, but come up with a book title that you believe honestly represents the offer that you make to market. Okay? And then you've got the basis of going to market and offering something quite unique, quite valuable, etc. So I would suggest you go through that idea and see how you go. And there's lots of other books. A management book here called Helping the Best Get Better. One idea to a page approximately on marketing, management, leadership, selling, etc. So you can have any of those books. And the one thing I can send you when you contact me by email is a full list of the books. You can see the front covers of all the books. And then you can say to me, well, what I'd like to do to start with is go for that particular book there, Helping the Best Get Better, or Sell Pleasure First, Price Last. And I'll send it to you, and that's the end of that. And hopefully we can stay in touch. And if ever you've got a problem that you want to deal with, just let me know. If you ever would like me to take part in a session that you're running for management or salespeople, I'm more than happy to help. And finally, Simon, again, thank you for having run this particular session. I hope everybody got something out of it. And there's only a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, but we'll talk about those next time round.
That's very good. And again, John, really appreciate also you making the time available to come on this show. Now 5 episodes plus our original first episode as well. So 5 episodes in this particular series, but it's every Thursday, guys. And John's making his time available to us. I mean, every week he's giving us an hour of time, and that's over an hour of value from someone who is doing this every day and has done this every day for many, many years. So, it's someone who has executed on the things that he's teaching. So, John, I'm very appreciative of that. And I know our audience is. Yeah. So thank you so much again for making yourself available. Guys, we are back next. Sorry, John, go.
No, I was just going to say, I want to say thank you again, and I'm going to a nightclub now, so yeah, I'll talk to you next week.
Well, we'll enjoy that over there.
What are you
and
have a big deal out of that, Simon, or something, that I should go to a nightclub? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all.
Good. Okay.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Okay.
John, have a great evening, and guys, thank you so much for tuning in, watching John and I live today and every Thursday. I really appreciate it. Like we said at the start, this show's for everyone out there, particularly this Thursday segment. There are some challenging times out there, and like John has highlighted today, we can get caught up in the negativity of what's not happening for us. We can go and do something about it and focus on a couple of key areas. I get loads of value out of this. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, on LinkedIn Live, the Think Beginning Not End podcast, doing our LinkedIn Live series with John. We will see you guys next Thursday with John. And in the meantime, don't forget, if you've got any of those book titles John mentioned, drop them in the comments, and I'll pick them up and we can talk about them next week as well. And don't forget, info@johnlees.com.au for a copy of that book. And guys, we really look forward to seeing you next Thursday on the show. And until then, stay safe, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks again. Thank you.